back. I'm Donna with ABC Cake Decorating Baking Supplies. We are on lesson 19. We are going to be finishing up our final cake. We are going to learn in this lesson how to make a carnation, how to use some filler flowers, and then the leaves and the ferns that you learned in the previous lessons. We're going to take all of this, put it together, and we're going to make this cake. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is when we get into making a carnation, we are going to be using 2 tips. Now you can use 2 tips or you can use 1. This is a tip 12, and if you remember back when we were doing all of our other flowers, you can also just use your coupler if you want. So if you don't want to wash another dish, you can just use the coupler. And then we are going to be using, this is a tip 45. They also have a tip 50 you can use. The difference is just kind of the size on it. But if you look at this one, the difference between this and I think I have in here a 104. When we did the rose, remember how the 104 is tapered? The 45 and the 50 are not. They are just a straight, just a straight slot. So that's the only difference. Now, if you don't have a 45 or a 50, you can use the 104. Just remember, just like in the rose, the fat tip is down, okay? We want the fat tip down, the skinny end up. So when we start making all the ruffles on our flower, the thin part of the ruffle is up, so it makes a prettier, more delicate type of ruffle. We have our flower nail. Going to use a little bit of icing on here. Then we're going to take our wax paper, parchment paper, and put it right here. Now, just like all of the other flowers we did, because the carnation is kind of a ball flower, we're going to go ahead and type and pipe out a nice ball on it. Now this carnation is larger because I did use a larger flower nail, but I'm going to do a smaller one for this cake because this will be the second carnation. Because that one only has 1, so we're going to do that. Now because I did put a little bit of color in my bag, I want to make sure that the color part is up so that you'll be able to see the little ripples in it. Now when you do the carnation, you want to be straight up and down to start, and then kind of like the rose, we're going to continue to curve out just a little bit so that our petals fall down so that it gets a complete coverage of our ball. When we do this, very simple flower, this is just nothing but wiggling icing back and forth. We start up on top and we're just going to do a quick little wiggle. We're just wiggling like we're nervous, okay? We're just wiggling and we're just going to do this straight up and down till we get all the way around. Now, once I have the top, we're going to turn just slightly and do the same wiggle. You don't want to repeat because the carnation doesn't have an exact pattern to it, but you're just wiggling. You're just wiggling it. And if you remember, turn your flower nail, okay? So we're just wiggling. Now when we get to the sides, we're going to come down just a little bit and do a little bit more of a wiggle. And basically, it's nothing more than a glob of icing. But when you do a carnation, because they're not such a perfect flower, they're my favorite flower, it's nice to add a little bit of color to them because it just gives it that little bit more realistic look to it. That was the carnation. Very simple. Just scribble. You're scribbling with icing and you just made a carnation. Now with all the skills that you've learned, and look at the things that we've learned. We've made a sunflower, we made 2 different types of roses, we made a mum, we made a bachelor button, carnations. You've already learned how to do the leaves and how to do the ferns. Now we're just going to add in some little filler flowers and put everything together. So what I have is my cake right here. Like I told you, if you're in a hurry for your flowers, I throw them in the freezer, okay? So let me grab them real quick. and hopefully they're all nice and cold. And if you try to pull one off and they don't come off, that's okay. Just put them back in the freezer for a little bit. Now, because we're going to be putting flowers on a flat cake, sometimes you don't want them to be just flat. Kind of like, and unfortunately you probably can't see this, but on this side, see how the roses are kind of elevated and kind of out from each other? How you achieve that is by adding mounds of icing. Generally, when I add mounds of icing, I add them with the same color as the top. Usually I go green only because for any filler flowers or for any leaves or anything, if I miss something, it's green and it's not so obvious. So usually when I do my fillers, I use the same color icing. But because I want you to see what I'm doing, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, and actually because I've already used this icing for the carnation, I could just use this. But just to show you, I'm going to take, and it's just a piping bag full of icing. Now this would normally be the exact same color as that is. I'm just going to cut. One of the things that's important is you want to lay out where you want your flowers to go. One of the best ways to do that is either take a circle the same size as your cake, or just turn your cake pan over and kind of decide where you want your flowers to be. If I want, let's say I want my chrysanthemums, I want them all clustered together. So I'm just going to add a cluster of icing right there. And then if these are frozen, watch how easy these come off. Look at that. They just come off real easy. Now you can't handle them a whole lot or they'll start to melt. And then let's say I want another one back here. So we'll do that. Then we'll take another chrysanthemum. And just because these are flowers we made, but if I was doing this, you know, I may actually make more flowers than this. But this is just for demonstration purposes, so you guys will get an idea. So see, this is my little chrysanthemum. Plug right there. Let's move this out of the way so. Okay, now let's say I want to add my bachelor buttons, and I want to add one right here, and let's say we're going to add one right here. Okay. See, by putting them in the freezer, it makes it so much easier. Later on in some of the lessons, I'm going to show you exactly how to pipe a flower right on the nail and pick it up with flower lifters, but I actually think this works so much better because you're not dealing with a very soft flower. So see, there's our bachelor buttons. And let's put one more right here. We'll just make them symmetrical here. Whoop. We killed another carnation right there. Like that. And then let's see, we got our rose. Let's say we want one of our roses right here. We'll do our ribbon rose. There's our ribbon rose. And then our carnation. He was just made, so I don't know. Well, he's pretty good. Okay. Then we'll put our carnation, we'll put it next to our rose right here. Okay. And then we've got this rose. If you want, you could even, let's see, because we're playing right now. Let's take, and I'm going to just do a wiggle here. And let's say that this was my whole border. And all I did for my border is I just wiggled back and forth. That's all I did. And I want to put my rose. The nice thing about decorating your cake, and it doesn't want to stay, so we're going to just, oh, there it is you can do your own design however you want. Now that you're ready for your filler flowers, let's say that I've had my placement exactly where I want them to be. One of the things that I really like to have when I start to decorate my cake is my turntable. My turntable is like my little buddy for me. It lets me move all around the cake. So the first thing I want to do for my filler flowers is take my tip, and this is actually a little bit smaller than a 104. This is a 102. The filler flowers that I've done right here are basically nothing more than a carnation, and then I've just added some dots to them. So all you do is you just, let's see, you just wiggle back and forth. And get the design that you know how far down you want to go on your cake. And this is all I'm doing. I have the fat side down, skinny side up, and we're just kind of wiggling as we go down our cake. And what I've done here is I did stripe my bag a little bit just so I can get a little bit of color variation in there. And then you just keep continuing doing that. And then in the middle, like I've done here, to make your filler flowers look like they're actually a flower, what I do, and I don't need a tip for this, I'm just going to cut a very small hole in my bag. And you can see I'm getting a small dab of icing. If you want, you can use a tip 1. And then all I'm going to do is just go up here and just randomly just dot some flowers, or dot my little middles to make them look like flowers. And then you just continue that on where you want it to go. Now we're going to use our leaf tip, and we've used it in other lessons. We even used it to make our little sunflower here. If you want, the way I do a leaf tip, like right in here, you can see I have this big, and see, this is why you'd want it to be green so you wouldn't see those mounds. All I do is I just take my leaf tip, just stick it in there, squeeze until I get the leaf I want, and then I come out. Here, if I want a standing leaf, I'm just going to squeeze my icing and come up. Here, squeeze my icing and come out. So you can just go around. The leaves are really good for just filling in any type of voids that you have in your cake, along with your filler flowers. Now, if you wanted to, you could take, and let's say I wanted to put a fern going down my cake. What I want to do is take it, and I'm going to hold it straight up and down again, just like if I was making a leaf. I'm going to squeeze it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do 6 counts twice, 5 counts twice, just so my fern gets smaller and smaller. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. If you have little kids at home, they can help you count. And then it's a nice little learning lesson for them. Then 1, 2. And then when you get to the very end, even though this is a little bit different color icing, what you can do is just do a couple little dots. And then just kind of do a curlicue. And then you'd have your fern. So you can just, like on this cake here, let me put it up. You can do little ferns going down. And sometimes it's really cool to have the cake the same color. It's just the leaves and the designs. You can kind of see they're very soft. But to have the cake all the same color really does a beautiful statement, especially if it's in a really pretty mint green. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. And you've done the same thing, you've just done it all in one color. Also, as you let your color set, remember they're going to continue to darken. So if you're wanting to get that really deep red for a rose or a red carnation, start with your pink and then go with red and let it set for a day, and then your color's going to intensify. I really hope you enjoyed the journey through the intermediate flowers. Now, I cannot wait for you to make your cake, and you're going to go, oh my gosh. And it was so simple, so simple. If you have any problems with any of the flowers or anything we went over, please rewind the videos and go back over them. And listen, make sure that your technique, your positioning, and the consistency of your icing is right. Make sure your nail, you're turning it the correct way, and make sure that you're positioning, you don't move it around. Thank you so much. Can't wait to see you on our next cake journey.